Elizabeth Thornton said, when there is a problem, always identify and evaluate your assumptions because they may be causing the problem. Today, we are evaluating our assumptions and our limitations so we can prepare for the balanced life that we are trying to build.
It's time for Growing Hope, the show determined to grow up hearts open to pursue the extraordinary. Because you are extraordinary! And now, live from a little cabin in the woods, nestled along Big Spring Creek, it's your host, Kathryn Lang.
Hello and welcome to Growing Hope, where we come together to dare to be more, to dare to do more, and to dare to share more because we are so much more than we can even imagine. I am Kathryn Lang, your resident Hope Smith and purveyor of snarky rainbows, because a little twisted encouragement is fun. And we need fun things to keep us going now and then. This world rarely wants us to stay in control. This world is actively working to pull us out of control. Even the elements that we think we can control have a tendency to tumble out of control, usually about the moment we firmly believe we are most in control. When things spin out of control, we need to have a solid footing to regain our balance. Otherwise, things are going to get bad and get bad fast. We need balance. We need to move to that place where we can quickly grab our balance when we find the struggles occur. And when we invest in reviewing our limitations, the things that are beyond our control, we can learn to adjust our control elements that exist around those situations. So what are the immediate circumstances that you're dealing with? What are the physical hurdles that you have to deal with? What are the relationship barriers? How deep does your empty well syndrome go? And what are the thought blockades that are keeping you back? You have to understand what is beyond your control if you're going to understand what is holding you back and pushing you down or knocking you off track. Knowing your limitations allows you to better gauge how to do what you can where you are with what you have, like we've been talking about. Last night, when I got ready to go to bed, I realized I had left the sheets in the dryer. Yesterday was sheet day at our house, and because the sheets were in the dryer and the new sheets were also in the dryer, I didn't have a bed to get into, at least not a made bed. An unmade bed was my limitation. It was a limitation that prevented me. It was a minor limitation, but it was still a limitation that prevented me from doing what I had planned to do. And so I went to get the sheets out of the dryer, and they were still damp. It extended my limitation even more because I didn't put the sheets away when I started, and so now I had to put the sheets back in the dryer and start the dryer again. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. My immediate circumstances were a sheetless bed. I could have figured out a way around that, but who wants to sleep in a sheetless bed? It was also the physical hurdle that was keeping me from doing what I was wanting to do. I wanted to go to bed, but I couldn't because of the sheetless situation. And it caused a relational limitation because my husband was annoyed that I hadn't finished doing what I was doing with the sheets earlier, and his annoyance made me more annoyed, so the situation became even more tense. Then I changed my thought process. Instead of investing all of my time and energy in being annoyed at the dryer for not doing its job the first time through, at my bed for not making itself, at me for not finishing what I started, at my husband for being annoyed, I just made the choice to get a few things done while I waited. I did a little bit. I had some time, so how I invested that time was going to make the difference in my position and in my balance. I did have limitations. My limitations didn't change, but my focus did. And how I chose to work within those limitations made the difference in the rest of my night. I took on a few little tasks like picking up around the bed and also doing some writing because I had some time. Even though I'd already shut off my computer, I just used a pencil and paper. Turns out that works every single time you try it. So I got things done. And when the dryer finally did its job, I went to work, I made the bed, and because I had taken that time and done that little bit, it was easier to get around the bed. And I was able to go to sleep content in knowing that the little bits made a difference. In life, we all have big dream goals, but we aren't always going to reach them all, or we don't always reach them all. If you aren't where you want to be, remember there is only one thing that's holding you back, and it isn't your limitations. The things that are holding you back, the one thing holding you back looks back at you from the mirror every single day. The things of this world are going to be pushing on you. The limitations are part of the hindrance in your life, but they are not what's keeping you back. It's what you do and the choices you make that gets you there. It's still us. It's still you. But the limitations are going to give us an out if you want an out. And if you want an out, any out will work. If you want to live a balanced life, then you will have to make the choices that are going to build your balanced life. Or you can take the out provided by the limitations that you encounter, or some other out. It's up to you. Choosing a balanced life begins with admitting the problems so you know what you're up against. The next step, the step that we're talking about, is reviewing your options in 5 parts: position, limitations, resources, sacrifice, determination. So you can weigh what you have, and then you can do what you can do with what you have. It's up to you. So today we begin to review our limitations. Growing up, I was a tomboy. I never shied away from doing and taking on the tasks that the other boys in the family, because I had all boy brothers and, well, duh, because they were brothers, and I had all male cousins that I saw on a regular basis. I would join in with what they were doing because that's what I wanted to do. I love being outside and attempting things. But when I got married, I still wanted to attempt all the things that I wanted to attempt. I still wanted to learn to plumb. I still wanted to add an addition on myself, like get out there and build it. But I had to learn what my limitations were. Knowing my limitations physically, how strong I was to do it, made it possible for me to work around those limitations. Each time you define your limitations, you create new opportunities that you wouldn't have discovered if you hadn't taken the time to define them. We have to know our limitations. We have to define our limitations if we're going to make a way around them. So first, look at your immediate circumstances. What is beyond your control? The other day I needed to mow the grass. In truth, I had needed to mow the grass for a while. But I kept putting it off because the mower had a flat tire and my husband was driving the car with the air pump in it. I remembered to ask him to fill up the tire, and he filled it up before he left the next morning. Of course, right after he drove down the driveway, it started raining, and it rained for the next 5 days. I couldn't mow. Even though I wanted to mow, okay, so I didn't want to mow. I knew I needed to mow, but I still couldn't mow because it was raining. But there was a moment, a break, where it got dry enough that I got out and I weed-eated. I did what I could do. Even though I had limitations in my circumstances that were way beyond my control, I found a way to do what I could do. The second thing we have to do is we have to review what our physical hurdles are. Think about what physical limitations you have. Now, I'm not afraid of technology, but I definitely don't need to engage with it. Anyone that has known me knows that my natural curiosity pushes me to push buttons, and when it comes to technology, pushing buttons randomly isn't always a good thing. And when it comes to coding, curiosity as to, hey, what is this going to do, doesn't always work out the way you wanted. So I've learned from experience that this is a physical limitation of mine. Another physical limitation that I have is my height. I'm only 5 feet tall. And there are just certain things you cannot do on your own when you're 5 feet tall. You have to have some assistance. You have to have some help to get some things done. So even though these are physical limitations, with the coding, I could learn coding, maybe. But with the height, I have to ask for help. There are some limitations that can be overcome by investing in knowledge, and there are some limitations that cannot be overcome without help from others. Physical limitations are the abilities and attributes that can hinder your ability to do what needs to be done. What are your physical limitations? The third thing is to remember it's all about relationships, but even relationships have their limitations. Knowing how the relationships limit your options will make it easier to plan for those limits or to plan around those limits. I homeschooled my sons for 17 years, and most days I would have told you how much of a blessing it was. But there were other days. There were days when I knew I needed to get things done, or I needed to take a step into my own big dream goals. And those relationships became limitations. My sons could not be left alone, not because of their age, but because they were brothers. One of the few times we left them alone, the youngest called us with a whispered conspiracy, and he's like, "Hey, it's me. It's okay. The boys locked me in my room, but I crawled out the window and I'm at Grandpa's." We couldn't leave them together, and so it became a limitation of what we could do. Relationships are a blessing, but they can also be limitations because relationships require investment of time and energy, of focus, of resources. So when we're looking at our relationships, we have to determine how the relationships are creating hurdles for pursuing those big dream goals. How are the relationships keeping us off balance? And do we need to release the relationship or just make an adjustment? The fourth thing is to understand that we all get caught up in the empty well syndrome. You know, I don't have enough to get done. But if you don't have what you need to do what you need to do, then sometimes you just have to get creative. Sometimes you have to make adjustments in the recipe because you didn't have the ingredient in your pantry. Sometimes you have to make an adjustment in the meal choice when you don't have that recipe. But there are ways around it. But the biggest limit the biggest thing that you have to think about is your thoughts. There is nothing that's going to control the journey more than the thought direction. What are the limits of the thoughts that you're taking? What are the limits of the thoughts that you're having? When I had my encounter with the Yellow Jackets many years ago, that became a limiting thought. If I heard something buzzing, I would literally freeze in my steps. I couldn't go on. It wasn't possible. My body would move. It became a limiting thought for me. And I had to learn to take a breath, listen, look, and be aware of what was going on around me so that I could move on. So what is it that is holding you back? What thoughts are holding you back? If there are thoughts holding you back right now, you either have to change your thoughts or you have to change what you're going to do. Those are the only two choices that you have. But you can do both. You can change your thoughts and you can adjust your actions to align with the thoughts that you are struggling with. But it's up to you. Without recognizing the limitations that you have, you won't be able to deal with those limitations. And you might end up somewhere you never wanted to go. But once you deal with those limitations, you are strengthened and emboldened to pursue what it is that you want to do, to walk out your big dream goals, to live the life that you are designed to live. We all have limitations. We all have limits of what we have and what we can do, and even limitations caused by our circumstances or where we are. It's not the limitations that dictate the journey. It's what we do in and through those limitations that are going to make the difference for our lives. You have big dream goals, and you have it in you right now to live out your big dream goals. But there will be things that are going to get in the way. Those are your limitations. When you recognize your limitations, that's the second part of reviewing your options. It's the way to create a path to the life that you want to live, to that balanced life. Once you know that there is something in the way, you can find a way around, or you can make an adjustment that limits the effects of those limitations. If you don't know, then you won't. It's as simple as that. What are the immediate circumstances? Write out the things that are beyond your control, like weather, location, technology. What are the physical hurdles? Make a list of the physical things that keep you from being in the position that you want to be in. What are the relationship barriers? Think about the people that hold you back, intentionally or not. And how can you adjust to deal with those relationships? Maybe it means having a heart-to-heart talk, or maybe it means finding a new season for growing relationships. And how does the empty well syndrome work for you? Keep an inventory of what you have and what you don't have, so that you don't dwell on your lack, but are able to get creative about how to use what you do have. And finally, what are your thought blockades? Know your mind. As a man thinks, so is he. So be aware of what you're thinking so you can change directions or change your mind. I attended a writers conference once where one of the main speakers was talking about how to build your speaking platform. I always wanted to be a speaker. I know, shocking, right? So I stood in line to have a one-on-one conversation with her. As I waited, she paid very close attention to the woman in front of me who was dressed perfectly, and she had just that look, and the speaker was fawning over her. And she said to this woman in front of me, "You have the look that people want to listen to." And the speaker glanced back at me, probably not intentionally, hopefully not intentionally, but I could tell she was looking at me. And she continued on with, "Some people don't." I knew what she meant. I was not physically where I wanted to be at the time, and it put thoughts in my head that limited my ability to pursue what I wanted to do. I now look at my limitations, my weight, my location, my limited transportation at the time, and I accept them. I am where I am, and that's okay. But I dare to imagine another way. And because I dare to imagine another way, it's getting me there one little bit at a time. If you are ready to make your step into all of your possibilities, I want to hear from you. You can email me at contact@growinghoperadio.com, or just come on over and visit the Growing Hope Radio Facebook page. Let's hang out, let's talk, let's share, let's engage. Remember, we are so much stronger when we are in this together. And I want this to be a relationship that allows you to be bold in purpose and on purpose. So connect with me, and we will grow up all of your possibilities. Until next time, I am Kathryn Lang, and I am your Rainbows and Lollipops host. Because remember, every day holds a promise of more, and every action you take contains the power of possibility. It is not about what the world says. It is not about what the world shows. The strength of hope and encouragement will and does push through the limits, the limitations, the assumptions, and the walls of the world. My prayer is always that the words I'm sharing with you help establish a foundation of hope that is going to shatter the delusions of the world around us. We can. You can. It's all right there. Step into your possibilities. Live your big dream goals. Pursue all that you're designed to be. You are an extraordinary person. You are unique in all the world. Nobody but you can do it. And I know that when you choose to, you will do it. Until next time that we're together, remember, be blessed. And in all that you're doing and in all that you're being, choose to be a blessing.
Thank you for joining us for Growing Hope with Kathryn Lang, where we are sharing hope, encouragement, and inspiration to do more. Visit www.kathrynlang.com to invite Kathryn to be part of your event or to share your own stories of possibility living. Until next time, remember that a seed of hope planted and nurtured will grow up into a world of possibilities.